Bright Duty. Every student matters.
Hello dear students, welcome to your lecture, and in today's lecture we are going to cover the second chapter of your book. This chapter is basically a poem. The name of this poem is Lord Ullin's Daughter. This is written by Thomas Campbell. Now before we move on to the explanation of this poem to you, let us have a brief discussion about the poet as well. Now the poet Thomas Campbell was born in Scotland in the year 1777 and he died in the year 1844 in France. Now he is remembered because the poetry that he wrote was always very sentimental, it was very emotional, and it revolved around the human feelings, around the human affairs, Now, there are a lot of works that that have been done, that have been written by Thomas Campbell. A few of them, for which he is very popularly known are The Pleasures of Hope, Ye Marines of England, The Soldier's Dream, and so on. Now in this poem, Thomas Campbell talks about Lord Ullin's daughter. Now Lord Ullin, so this is the name of a person whose daughter runs away with a chief of a mountain. So this revolves around a love affair of two people, Lord Ullin's daughter and the chief, the head of a mountain. Now they both ran away, and their journey, how did they manage to run away? The kind of tragedy that revolved around their story is being talked about in this poem. Now this poem is basically a ballet. Now what is a ballet? When you are narrating a story in the form of a poem, we call it a ballet. So basically, we have multiple stanzas through which the poet is narrating to us the story of Lord Ullin's daughter and the chief of Ulva's Isle, like we are going to read. So without wasting much time, let us start reading. So a chieftain to the highlands bound cries, "Boatman, do not tarry, and I'll give thee a silver pound to row us over the ferry." So who is a chieftain first of all? Chieftain means the head of some sort of a clan. Of a clan or a tribe that we are talking about. So this chieftain was the head of a clan, and where did he bound? Means where did he live? He lived on the highlands. Highlands means mountains. So there was a chieftain, a chief who lived on the mountains. He cries. Now cries over here does not mean to start crying. Here cries means to call out. So he called out to the boatman. He said, "Boatman, do not tarry." Tarry means delay. Okay? "And I'll give thee a silver pound." Thee. This is the old English, version of writing you. So thee is you. So the chieftain told the boatman that please do not delay. I will give you a silver pound, a silver coin. Why will I give you a silver coin? To row us over the ferry. Now what is a ferry? Ferry is a small boat. And we all know that we have to row the boat. Okay? Just like we have to drive a car, we have to row a boat. So, the chieftain, now what does he tell the boatman in the first stanza? the chieftain or the head of a clan, the head of a tribe who lived on the mountains, he called out to a boatman and he told him not to delay anything. He told him, he promised him that I am going to give you a silver coin if you will row us. So there were two people. One, we have got to know that it was the chieftain. So he said that if you will allow us to sit in your boat and if you will take away, take us away from here, in return of it, I will give you a silver pound, a silver coin. So this was your first stanza. Now before we proceed to the second stanza, let us discuss the poetic devices. So I am going to discuss the poetic devices with you simultaneously with every stanza. Now the first poetic device that we have in the first stanza is rhyme scheme. Now we all are very well aware how do we make out the rhyme scheme of a stanza? By looking at the last word of every line. Now let us look over here. Bound is the last word in the first line, so we give it the alphabet A. Second line, last word is tarry. Now tarry is not rhyming with bound. These are different words, different sounds they have. So we are going to give it a different alphabet altogether. Now the third line, last word is pound. So pound and bound, they are rhyming. So we'll give it the same alphabet as we gave to bound, that is A. And the last one is ferry. So tarry, ferry, these again are rhyming. So we'll give ferry also the same alphabet as we gave to tarry. So what is my rhyming scheme of the first stanza? It is A, B, A, B. Okay. Now the second poetic device that we have in the first stanza is enjambment. Now what is enjambment? Very simple, I will tell you. When in a stanza there is a line, a complete line which is divided into two parts, that is an enjambment. For example, if you look here at this line, and I will give thee a silver pound to row us over the ferry. Now this is one single line which has been divided into two parts. And why has the poet divided this line into two parts? So that pound and ferry can fall in different lines and we can establish a rhyming scheme. Okay, these are all the aspects that a poet has to keep in mind before writing a poem. So this is one line but has been divided into two parts. So such a line, which is a single line, a complete line, is known as an enjambment. So what is the enjambment in this stanza? This line, and I'll give thee a silver pound to row us over the ferry. So this is my enjambment in the first stanza. Okay. So let us move on to the second stanza now. Now who be ye would cross Losh Kyle, this dark and stormy water? Oh, I am the chief of Ulva's Isle, and this Lord Ullin's daughter. So this is spoken by, these two lines are spoken by the boatman. Okay. The chieftain, as we read in the first stanza, the chieftain was talking to the boatman. He was telling the boatman that if you will let us sit in your boat and if you will help us get away from here, then I will give you a silver pound in return of it. So now the boatman replies. What does the boatman say? The boatman says, who be ye? Now again, these are old English words. Who be ye means, who are you who would cross Losh Kyle? Now what is Losh Kyle? Loch Gyle is a name of a lake in Scotland. So this is a lake, and towards the end of the lake was a small island by the name of Ulva. So Isle means island and Ulva is the name of that island. So the boatman was obviously very shocked. He asked that, who are you who wants to cross this lake, Loch Gyle, in dark and stormy water, when the weather is so stormy, it is dark all around and there is storm in the sea. Who are you who wishes to cross this lake? Now the chieftain, the last two lines are spoken by the chieftain. He introduces himself to the boatman and he says, "Oh, I am the chief of Ulva's Isle." So, I am the chief, I am the head of this island, the name of which is Ulva, and this lady who's there with me is Lord Ullin's daughter. So, what did we read in the second stanza? We read that the boatman was obviously surprised because it was very dark, the water was stormy, and he wanted to know who this person was who wanted to cross the waters in such a bad weather. So the chieftain then replied and introduced himself to the boatman by saying that I am the chief, I am the head of an island by the name Ulva, and this lady along with me is the daughter of Lord Ullin. So now what are the poetic devices? We have only, one poetic device in this stanza, which basically not a poetic device, but we'll discuss the rhyme scheme. So, what is the rhyme scheme now? Loch Gyle. So, we'll give this the alphabet A. Now, the second word, the second sentence, last word is water. So, Loch Gyle and water have nothing in common. There is no common sound that we can hear. So, we'll give it a different alphabet, which is B. Coming to the third line, last word, it is Isle. So, Loch Gyle and Isle, we can see the similarity. So, we'll give it the same alphabet as we gave to Loch Gyle. And the last one is daughter. Now, daughter and water are again rhyming. So, we'll give it the same alphabet as we gave to water. So, the rhyming scheme of the second stanza is again AB, AB. Now, let us move on to the third stanza. And fast before her father's men, 3 days we fled together. For should he find us in the glen, my blood would stain the heather. So the chieftain continues to tell the boatman that fast before her father's men, he requests the boatman to take them away from that place as fast as he could. Why? Because her father's men, who was the father of this girl we are talking about? Lord Ullin. And Lord Ullin's men, Lord Ullin's soldiers were actually chasing them. They were running behind them to catch them. So the chieftain was very, very anxious. He was very, very worried, and he told the boatman that please take us away from here as fast as you could before her father's men can find us. 3 days we fled together. Fled is ran away. He told the boatman that we ran away 3 days back. So, it's been 3 days that we are running away from Lord Ullin's men. We are trying to save ourselves from Lord Ullin's men. For should he find us in the glen? For means because. Now, what is glen? Glen is a valley. So, the chieftain tells the boatman that if Lord Ullin's men are going to find me and this girl in the valley, my blood would stain the heather. Stain means to mark. You know, at times imagine you're wearing something white and then coincidentally you just stain your white shirt with tea. So stain is that mark that we get, okay? And heather means flowers. Heather are small flowers which are purple in color. So what does the chieftain tell the boatman? That please take us away from here very fast because her father's men are trying to catch us. We have been running for the past 3 days, and if they find us in this valley, they are going to kill me, obviously, and my blood is going to give a mark to all the flowers. You know, my blood you'd be able to see all over the flowers. So this is why the chieftain was in such great hurry, because he knew that if he would be found, he would be killed by Lord Ullin's men. So let us discuss the poetic devices now. Now the first poetic device, or rather I would first discuss the rhyme scheme of this stanza. Now again, the first word is men, we give it A. Together is B. Now Glen and men are rhyming, so A again. And heather and together are rhyming, so B. So the rhyme scheme is again A, B, A, B. Now the second thing that I would want to introduce you in this stanza, the poetic device inversion. Now again a very simple poetic device. Now at times when we write a poem, you know, what does a poet do? He changes the place of the subject and the object in a sentence. We all know what is a subject in the sentence and we all know what is an object in the sentence, right? So at times the poets interchange the positions of the subject and the object. And if such a feature is there in any sentence, then that comes under inversion. Now if you can see the line, first line if you see, and fast before her father's men. Now what is the subject in this line? Who are we talking about? We are talking about her father's men. So this is my subject. And the object is obviously the rest of the sentence, which is the object. So every sentence we first have the subject, then we have the object. But here it is inverted. It is the other way round. First is the object and then is the subject, and therefore it is the case of inversion. Now this poetic device inversion has been used throughout the poem. So I am sure that as we discuss the other stanzas and we discuss more examples, you are going to be clearer with this poetic device inversion, right? So let us move ahead. The fourth stanza says, his horsemen hard behind us ride, should they our steps discover, then who will cheer my bonny bride when they have slain her lover? Cheer means to encourage or to keep someone happy. Bonny bride, bride we all know, somebody who's been married very recently, she is going to be a bride, and bonny means very beautiful, very pretty. So that is what we call bonny. Slain means to kill someone. Okay, so what does the chieftain tell the boatman now? That his horsemen hard behind us ride. Whose horsemen are we talking about? Who is his? Lord Ullin. That Lord Ullin has actually sent an army of people who are riding on the horse and are looking for us. They are chasing us. and they are hard behind us, right? Means hard behind us means very desperately those people are looking for us. Should they our steps discover? If by chance they discover, they get to know in which direction we have come, then they are going to get hold of us. Who will cheer my bonny bride when they have slain her lover? So if they kill me, I am the lover of Lord Ullin. So if they kill me, then who is going to keep my beautiful bride happy, or who is going to look after this beautiful girl? So this is what the chieftain told the boatman. So once again, he tells the boatman that Lord Ullin's men are looking for us very desperately. They are chasing us, and if they discover our steps, if they discover in which direction we have come over, then they are going to kill me. I, who's the lover of Lord Ullin's daughter, they are going to kill me. And once I am dead, once I am killed, then who is going to look after my beautiful bride? Who is going to look after this beautiful girl? So now what are the poetic devices? First of all, again, we have a rhyme scheme in this stanza. First line, last word is ride. So, ride and bride, discover and lover, right? So, by now we all understand how to make out the rhyme scheme of any stanza. So, rhyme scheme is A, B, A, B. Now, next we have alliteration. Now, what is alliteration? Alliteration is a poetic device in which when you speak a few words in the sentence, the first alphabet of each word is same. So when you are speaking something, the sound of the first alphabet repeats itself. For example, horseman, his horseman hard. If you look at these three words, the first alphabet of all these three words is H. So when you are speaking, the sound of her repeats itself. So his horseman hard is alliteration. Another example of alliteration that we have in this stanza is bonny bride. Again, bonny bride, the first alphabet is B. So the sound of B is repeating itself. And next, like I told you, we are going to have a lot of examples of inversion in this poem. So, inversion is another poetic device that we have. Now, what is the poetic device? Now, example. His horseman hard behind us ride. Now, like I told you above, inversion is a poetic device in which an object is used first and a subject is used later. Now, if you see in this sentence also, his horseman hard behind us ride. So, us is the subject, okay? And his horseman is the object. So, here again the places of the subject and the object are inverted. Another example of inversion in this stanza is, should they our steps discover. Now, what is the subject? Our steps. So, this is my subject. They is my object. So, again the object is used first and the subject is used second. So, this is an example of inversion. So, let us move on to the next stanza now. Okay. Outspoke the hardy Highland wight, I'll go, my chief, I am ready. It's not for your silver bride, but for your winsome lady. So far the stanzas that we've read were spoken by the chieftain, where the chieftain was telling the boatman to help them, to take them away from that place in his boat. Now comes the turn of the boatman. So out spoke the hardy Highland White. Hardy means strong. Highland White. Highland we've discussed in the first stanza also. Highland means mountain. White, a very pleasant person who lives on these mountains. So finally, the boatman who was very strong, who was very courageous and who lived on the mountains, he finally spoke. And what did he tell the chieftain? I'll go, my chief, I am ready. He said, okay, chief, I am ready to take you away from here. It is not for your silver bride, but I am not doing this because you have promised to give me a silver pound in return of it. Silver bride means the money that the chief had offered to this boatman. So the boatman said that I am not taking you away from this place because you've offered me money in return, but for your winsome lady. Winsome, beautiful, pretty. So he said that I am simply taking you away because I don't want your lady, your bride, to be in any trouble. So this is what the boatman told the chieftain. So what did he say? Once again, finally spoke. Outspoke means finally the boatman also spoke. The boatman who was very strong, very courageous and who also lived on the highlands, he told the chief that I am ready to take you away from here, but I am not doing it because you offered me money. I am doing it because your bride, your lady is very beautiful and I don't want her to get into any trouble. So first let us discuss the rhyme scheme of this stanza. Now every stanza in this poem has a rhyme scheme. White and bright, AA, and ready and lady, BB. So again AB, AB is the rhyme scheme of this stanza. Now the second poetic device that we have is alliteration. Now like we discussed above, alliteration is a poetic device in which the sound of the first alphabet is repeated again and again. Now what is the alliteration? Hardy Highland. Right, so H sound is being repeated, so this is alliteration. And the third, again we have inversion. Now look at the first line of this stanza. Outspoke the hardy Highland White. Now who's the subject in this sentence? Who are we talking about? We are talking about the hardy Highland White, the brave soldier of the brave, this boatman who belonged to the mountain. So this is the subject and this is the object. So again the place is inverted, that is why inversion. Let us move on to the next stanza now. Okay. And by my word, the bony bird in danger shall not tarry. So though the waves are raging white, I'll row you over the ferry. So the boatman continued that by my word means I promise. I assure you that the bony bird, that this beautiful girl, here bird has been used to talk about the girl. So he says that I promise you that this beautiful girl is not going to be in any danger. Now tarry, we've read this word earlier also, which means to delay. So he says that there is going to be no delay. I am not going to waste any more time. I will assure, I promise you that this girl is not going to be in any danger. So, though the waves are raging wide, raging means angry. Raging white means stormy. So he says that although we can see that there is a very, very angry storm in the sea, in the water that we can see, but still, since I don't want this girl to be in any danger, I will row you over the ferry. Over the ferry means I will make you sit in my boat and I will take you away from here. So the boatman promised the chieftain in this stanza that because of anything, I will not let this beautiful girl to get into any danger. I will not delay, I will not waste any time, and I am going to take you away from here in my boat, despite the fact that there is a very heavy storm in the water tonight. Okay? So again, let us first see the rhyme scheme of this stanza. So, bird. The first line, last word is bird, we give it A. Tarry is B. White. Now there is no rhyming between bird or tarry and white. This is a new word altogether, so we give it a different alphabet, which is C. And the last one is ferry. Now ferry and tarry are rhyming, so again B. So the rhyme scheme of this stanza is a bit different. It is A, B, C, B. Now apart from the rhyme scheme, again we have the alliteration. What is the alliteration? Bony bird. The sound of burr is repeating itself. And we have another poetic device in this stanza, which is imagery. Now, what is imagery? Imagery is when the poet, through the poem, creates a scene in front of the readers. You know, when you are reading something, you can actually imagine that taking place in front of you. So, what are a few examples of imagery in this sentence? The first one is, the only one rather that we have is, the waves were raging white. Like I told you, raging white means there was a very heavy storm in the water. So, you can imagine the water to be very stormy with the help of this sentence. Okay, let us move on to the next stanza now. By this, the storm grew loud apace, the water wrath was shrieking, and in the scowl of heaven each face grew dark as they were speaking. So by this means by the time the boatman agreed to take these lovers away from that shore, the storm grew loud apace. Apace means the speed, the intensity of the storm had increased. The storm became even violent, more violent, more intense, more fast. The water wrath was shrieking. Wrath means again something which is very angry, anger. And shrieking is the sound that can be heard, Scowl. Now, scowl means something which is very dark and dirty. Now, what does the stanza say? The stanza says that by the time the boatman agreed to take the lovers from there, the storm had become even more intense, it had become more violent, and the water was actually screaming. The water was so angry, the storm was so severe in the water that you could hear sounds coming from the water, you could hear the water shouting, screaming. And in the scowl of heaven each face. Heaven, we all know what is heaven. Now here, heaven has been used to talk about the sky. Heaven otherwise is the paradise. When we talk about heaven, we always think about God. But here the word heaven is symbolizing the sky. So the sky was foul. It was very dark. It was very dirty. There was a lot of darkness in the sky. There was no moon. There were no stars. And there was complete darkness. And because of that, each face grew dark as they were speaking. And gradually it was becoming so dark that while they were talking to each other, they could not even see each other's face clearly. There was so much of darkness surrounding them that they could not even talk to each other. They could not even see each other clearly while they were speaking. So, what does the poet tell us in this stanza? He says that by the time the boatman agreed to take them away in his boat, the storm had become more intense, it had become more powerful, and the water was so angry that it was actually screaming. Moreover, the sky was very dark, and while the chieftain and the boatman were talking to each other, they could not even see their faces clearly because of that scowl, because of that darkness. So let us now discuss the rhyme scheme of this stanza first. Apace and face, we have the similar sound words. Shrieking and speaking, again the same sound. So, the rhyme scheme is AB, AB. Now, the second poetic device that I would like to introduce here is personification. Now, what is personification? Personification is a poetic device through which you are giving human values to some non-living things. If something is non-living in nature, but still you are giving it a human touch, that is personification. Now, what is the example of personification here? Water rat was shrieking. Now, water was shrieking over here. Water is something which is non-living. We can never hear water screaming or shouting, but here the poet has used the word shrieking because he wants to emphasize that the storm was so severe that there was, that the water was angry and there were sounds which were coming from it. So this is personification. Other than that, scowl of heaven. Okay, now scowl is always, we can also say that scowl means to give an angry look to someone. Now, when you are giving an angry look, expression, who has expression? Human beings. Heaven or sky, it is a non-living thing. It can never show his anger to anyone. But here the word scowl has been used with heaven just to show that the sky was very, very angry because there was darkness all around. So this is another example of personification. Then we have symbolism. This stanza has a lot of poetic devices. Symbolism. When you use one word to symbolize something else. Heaven over here is the symbol of sky. Rather than just writing the sky was very dark, that there was a lot of darkness in the sky or anything, the poet has used the word heaven. So, heaven is symbolizing the sky. The next poetic device is alliteration. Again, when we hear the same sound of the alphabet being repeated, so water rat, W, the sound of W is being repeated again. So, this is personification, and this entire stanza is nothing but an imagery because you can very well imagine a scene being created. You can actually visualize this happening, that the storm is getting intenser, the water is becoming more violent, and while the boatman and the chieftain are talking to each other, there's a lot of darkness that is surrounding them. So therefore, imagery in the whole stanza. So my dear students, we've discussed till the 7th stanza. I hope so far the stanzas were clear to you. I've discussed the poetic devices simultaneously. The rest of the poem I'm going to continue in the second part of this video lecture. So I'll see you in my next video now.